What's going on, Sooner Nation? So, listen, it is so good to be back talking Oklahoma recruiting. And the Oklahoma Sooners, like, what's it been? 3 or 4 months since they've had an actual commitment. So, Oklahoma fans have got to be starving for it at this point. Like, we don't want a transfer portal commitment. We want somebody to commit in the 2026 class. And the Oklahoma Sooners might have an upcoming commitment here in just a couple weeks. They've got a couple predictions flowing in. So we're going to talk about that today and then talk about a couple other guys that Oklahoma could be looking at on the defensive line. So make sure you guys are tuned in, join the discussion, jumping in the comments below, giving me your thoughts. And if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that like and hit that subscribe button. But of course, we got to talk Todd Bates and the defensive line, see where Oklahoma's at there, because for so many years, this has kind of been the area where Oklahoma fans have wanted Oklahoma to really just go out there and land a home run class. And you've gotten the 5-star and David Stone with Jaden Jackson, which might have been your best class so far. On the defensive line, you got Trent Wilson the year before. When BV and them came here, you got Grayson Halton, which has been a phenomenal pickup. And I definitely think could work himself into maybe like a first 3-round scenario if he has a really good year this year. But that means Oklahoma's actually got to replace several defensive linemen like Dominic Williams, Grayson Halton. Obviously, I think you'll still have Marcus Strong and guys like that come back, but you need to continue to build some depth and get some young guys in here. So for me, I thought this was a 3 to 4 interior defensive lineman class, depending on how you looked at it, depending on the type of guys that you got committed. And we've talked about Deuce Gerald's quite a bit, but today we got to talk about somebody that I talked about the other day, and now you've seen predictions start to flow in him from Steve Wiltfong and some other guys. But that is Brian Harris, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida, coming in at 6'3", 290 pounds, currently the 521st player according to the 247 composite rankings. Currently has an official visit scheduled with South Carolina on May 30th, Stanford on May 16th, right before his commitment date, West Virginia on June 6th, Auburn on June 10th. He's got one for Penn State. So if you kind of look at this, some of these guys that have official visits outside of South Carolina and Penn State are not on his final 5 schools. Now, the other thing is, if you guys remember, I was talking about it, I had a chance to catch up with Brian Harris last week, and one of the things that we were talking about was his next visit to Oklahoma. When is that going to be? Which I believe it was going to be the June 6th weekend, so I think that means West Virginia kind of got cut out there. And for Oklahoma, that's great news because that's going to be a big recruiting weekend for you, and he was really excited to get back on campus. And not even 48 hours later, you see this Brian Harris is committing May 23rd. So this kind of makes you wonder if Oklahoma is trying to start to get some commitments rolling, if they're trying to put the pressure on some guys to go ahead and start committing. But Brian Harris would be a phenomenal addition to this class, and I think could be a guy that could be a 3-year starter for Todd Bates. So this would be phenomenal if Oklahoma was able to go out here and land a guy like Brian Harris. Like I said, you got the predictions from Steve Wiltfong. And funny enough, there was an account called Nitney Lions Nation Recruiting. And I'm going to share this tweet here because I think this tells a lot about this recruitment as well. They tweeted out, Penn State has to have a really good official visit. Would be backbreaking to miss out on Brian Harris. This is them kind of looking at the RPM predictions for Oklahoma being the new leader, and then looking at the Wiltfong prediction to Oklahoma. Brian Harris reposted this tweet. So maybe this means something, or maybe it means nothing. I guess we'll find out here in a couple weeks. My guess currently right now, from the intel that I've been given and from my conversations, is that Brian Harris is going to be a part of this class. Todd Bates and this staff have a great relationship there. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, I would be celebrating. This is a guy that is going to quickly rise up through the recruiting rankings throughout the summer, and a guy that Jim Nagy would love to have on this team. The guy who's really good at evaluating talent. So that might tell you a whole lot there. But the question is, outside of Brian Harris, where's Oklahoma at on the defensive line. What are they looking to do? And so I think primarily target number one is Valadin Sone, the 6'3", 315-pound defensive lineman out of Dyke, Virginia, the 41st overall player in the 247 composite, a guy that could be a 5-star when it's all said and done. I believe that's Oklahoma's number one target on the board, and one that I believe Oklahoma is in a phenomenal position for. So you look at Valadin Sone, I think Todd Bates can close the door on that one. That would give Oklahoma 2 commits for the defensive line. You got a guy like Deuce Gerald, who we haven't really heard a ton about, but we know that him and his camp really love Oklahoma. The problem is, if you're Oklahoma, you've got to battle Alabama. You've got to battle Ohio State. Georgia's kind of out of it because Georgia hasn't been around in that recruitment. So when you look at Deuce Gerald's, it might be a little bit harder of a pull, but maybe you could switch to go to a guy like James Johnson out of Miami, Florida, the 6'2.5", 285-pound defensive lineman. I absolutely love this guy's film. If you guys haven't checked him out, you got to go check him out. Currently the number 88th ranked player in the 247 composite rankings. But then, of course, you can't forget about the homegrown talent in Taj Overton, the 6'3", 280-pound defensive lineman, currently the 168th ranked player. That is another guy that I think a lot of people believe will end up in Oklahoma's class. But the question is Taj Overton looking for a reason to not come to Oklahoma because he wants to get out of the state? And if that's the case, I think Oklahoma can still close the deal, but that means it might drag on a little bit longer. Other guys that I think Oklahoma could potentially look at closer to the end of the cycle, maybe if things kind of start to cool off with some of their top prospects. Preston Carey out at IMG Academy, a guy that played with David Stone and is playing on the other side of Will Conroy, 6'4.5", 300 pounds, 3-star currently. But again, I really like this guy and his upside potential. And I know Oklahoma has kind of kept the doors open there, which I think is important. And then another guy that Oklahoma's offered that we haven't really talked a ton about is J.J. Finch out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Another guy that I really like his film for. Pretty strong kid, got a really good frame. And another guy that I think if Todd Bates wanted to put on full acceleration, they could probably go out there and land his commitment. So defensive line recruiting for Oklahoma this upcoming recruiting cycle here in 2026, I think is going to be probably the most interesting recruitment on this side of the ball. And I think a long time that we've seen, just because I think Oklahoma has the chance to go out there and land some significant talent. It might not be 5 stars right off the rip, and they might not get a 5-star in this class when it comes to the defensive line or at all. But I think that this class is going to be loaded full of talent up and down the board. And I think Todd Bates has the ability to go out there and close and rekindle those relationships down in the Southeast, which is what helped him land a lot of that talent when he was at Clemson. So jump in the comments below, join the discussion. Let me know what you guys think. If you are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that like and hit the subscribe button. We'll see y'all next time.